I'm making a couple of assumptions about your background, and I need these things to be true for this course to be really useful for you. I'm expecting 1, basic web design skills, and 2, basic SharePoint skills. Let me explain what I mean by that. First, you have the fundamental skills of current web design. You know HTML and you know CSS. You can work with colors and fonts, layout and images on web pages. Because this course is not so much about web design in general as it is about taking your existing web design skills and being able to apply them in the world of SharePoint. You should be comfortable navigating around SharePoint sites, know how to work with lists and with document libraries. Be familiar with using the menu to get to different settings of a SharePoint site, and also how to work with the ribbon to edit and interact with individual web pages. Now, if that isn't the case, take a look at our SharePoint 2010 Getting Started course, or even better, the SharePoint 2010 Essential Training course. Now, if you're coming from a classic web designer role, you might think you don't really need to know SharePoint. Maybe you've been working on the web for years. You might have worked with other content management systems like Joomla or Drupal, and you're thinking you just want to develop your great design, come along, drop it into SharePoint and walk away. I understand where you're coming from, but that approach doesn't usually work very well. And that's because SharePoint is a fundamentally different platform. For a start, it isn't primarily a website content management system. What we're focusing on in this course is a small part of what SharePoint can do. And that's important because if you don't know the larger context of what SharePoint is and how it's used, you're likely to build a design that doesn't work. Because even using SharePoint for a short time will get you familiar with things like working with the ribbon. It will get you understanding things like the typical navigation structure inside SharePoint, how to work with lists and with libraries, how to use things like the search functionality, understand parts of SharePoint like the recycle bin and the ability to tag content. And this is all really important if you're trying to build a design that's going to allow people to use the functionality that's already there in SharePoint. So while I need you to know your way around SharePoint 2010, it isn't essential that you have experience with the application SharePoint Designer 2010. We will be using it to do much of our customization, but I will cover what you need to know about it in this course. Now, one thing to bear in mind is this course is very specific to the 2010 version of SharePoint. If you're working with SharePoint 2007, take a look at the 2007 version of this course.